would like to invite Professor Deepti Nair to deliver her talk on opportunistic infection in and after COVID. Dr. Deepti Nair is professor in Department of Microbiology, Safdarjung Hospital and Vardhaman Mahavir Medical College in New Delhi. Dr. Deepti Nair, all yours.
Thank you so much, sir. This is really an honor, and I hope I can abide by time. So I'm trying to share screen.
Yeah, I would request you to please stick to the time.
Yes, absolutely. We shall race through it, and we can always discuss later. So I modified the topic a little. Yeah. It was given to me as opportunistic infections, but I'm going to talk a little bit about immunity also. And
okay.
Yeah. So yeah. So yes, this is a cluster of graphs over here, and if you see that India is actually on the top in many places. We have a very large number of cases. We have gone through both the waves. We share a large part of this pie in the cumulative cases, and we are the darkest maroon because we have actually crossed 1 million cases. But the good news is that luckily, unlike its other sisters, SARS-CoV-2 has a mortality which is still under 3% overall. So, as a microbiologist, this interests me, but I'm sure as clinicians, you must be wondering, why have I put this slide? This is with a reason, because I want you to look at this group of cousins of the alpha and beta coronavirus. They're all waiting actually to change and become human pathogens. So we have quite a lot of worry in store. Or, the initial pathogens were actually common cold viruses, these ones mentioned over here. What started changing was somewhere in 2003 when SARS-CoV-2 came up from China and then, became a serious infection. And now we have SARS-CoV-2, which has become a pandemic. And in between, there was MERS, which was well contained. Here again, this is a microbiological, dream to actually see the virus structure. But all I want you to understand from this is it's an RNA virus. And as Dr. Manpreet will very well know, being a co-microbiologist in the senior, RNA viruses mutate a lot. Their replication is full of error, and because of that, they create a lot of clades or strains. And because of which, what we are seeing right now, multiple strains have emerged. And also it has a huge RNA genome, which allows for more and more mutations. Another thing is it has a very, very, very potent protein on its surface called the spike protein, which actually causes both immunity and possibly immune-related issues also. Overall, the knowledge of immunity is actually sparse, even with the older cold viruses, which were caused by corona, and even with the serious ones like SARS-CoV-1, MERS, and COVID-2. What we do know is that immunity is short-lived and variants will emerge, and also reinfection happens, as we are seeing now with SARS-CoV-2. The first limb of immunity is always innate immunity, what we know as skin and mucosal membrane, things like that. In the case of COVID, what we see as the first defense mechanism are the macrophages, and unfortunately, they get dysregulated, and that results in what is known as the cytokine storm. This cytokine storm is not like the usual cytokine storms which happen and end in, they're acute, they have huge levels of IL-6 and ends in shock and death, which is usually seen in gram-negative sepsis or tumor-related CRS. What we see in COVID is actually shock is hardly there, and death is due to respiratory failure. IL-6 levels are low and it's macrophage dominant. So the innate immunity actually goes for a 6. The protective immunity is possibly because of this one antibody. And please, everybody should remember, because there's a lot of marketing of ELISAs which are testing for all kinds of antibodies. What we have to look for is, are they looking for anti-receptor binding domain neutralizing antibody? Because that is the protective one. And this not only protects directly, it also acts on other cells and induces memory and leads to protection. This is one of the members which is definitely involved in protection. IgA is the first immunity which develops, and when we are talking of neutralizing, we are actually talking of IgG. This is just a tower, and all I want you to see is that all these are the antigens. And right now, all we know of is the spike glycoprotein, but there are many inside here. We don't know actually, there are antibodies and cell-mediated immunity formed against all, but we don't know if anything is really protective. In cell-mediated immunity, we have both helper and suppressor T cells. They are primarily acting against a spike. If there is a helper T cell response, which is Th1, which means it produces a lot of gamma interferon, then we have protection happening along with the neutralizing antibodies. This is the evidence as it is now. What is definitely seen and what marked, why people went back and looked at cell-mediated immunity was that lymphopenia was continuously seen both in first wave and second wave. In fact, this is very much like HIV actually, where there is something called T-cell exhaustion. HIV directly acts, and we very well know it acts on CD4 cells and kills them. This, we don't know exactly how this, it's possibly by something called overstimulation. Platelets are also, there's been an entire wonderful lecture before me about platelets, so I won't really go into that. Platelets are also playing a big role. But another very important thing is that SARS has a direct effect on immune response genes. So it controls even the genetic manipulations leading to immunity. This leads to a decrease in IFN production, that is interferon. It leads to increase of fibrotic and inflammatory mechanisms, and all your cell-to-cell receptor, activities are controlled and either dysregulated, which is why, again, the abnormal cytokine storm and inflammatory and coagulative process. So the whole thing in the first wave started with something called immunity passport. What we do know is there is no immunity passport. There's probably an immunity signature. In severe disease, IL-6 will be raised, lymphopenia will be there, and neutrophilia will be there. So low lymphocytes, high neutropenia, simple test to do TLC, DLC, raise CRP, you have a problem in your hand beyond the first week. So a balanced immune response with high anti-RBD neutralizing antibodies and Th1 is possibly protective. So what are the infections in COVID? There are different kinds of infections. When you say co-infections, they are happening with COVID. Superadded or super infections or opportunistic infections happen usually after COVID is over. And then, of course, there is hospital-acquired or healthcare-associated infections. Now, maximum documented are obviously pneumonias and sepsis, and usually multiple pathogens. It's a killer disease. The mortality goes, incidences and prevalence is more than 50%, and mortality is more than 70 to 80%. West has documented more than 50%, but it's actually far more than that. So you have virus, bacteria with fungi, or mixtures of...
Deepti, can you summarize, please?
Themselves. So in the eye, the infections have been staph, alpha hemolytic strep, anaerobic, candida, aspergillus, and of course the influenza. There have been predisposing comorbidities, which everybody knows because so much has come out on WhatsApp. But the most important thing has been the misuse of steroids. And I think I would like to leave you with this slide. Everything we do before a pandemic will seem alarmist, and everything we do after will seem inadequate. I think we're seeing this quite a lot. Thank you so much for the patience.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Deepti, for that wonderful lecture.